We're breaking into Sony. Yeah! Oh, my back. Now where could it possibly be? No, that's not it. Come on, it's gotta be here. Aha, this is all I need to.
And where do you think you're going with that, sir?
Nowhere, Mr. Sony. I was just, hey, look over there.
Well, that is very nice, but you still... Shit.
I don't know how much time I have, but at least I've got this. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 wasn't very good.
Wow.
I feel like Mark Webb probably had a good idea of what he wanted the film to be about, but then Sony put a gun to his head, trashed his ideas, demanded there be more villains, and shockingly we ended up with a movie that makes about as much sense as your drunk uncle.
I'll show you a good time.
They painted Jamie Foxx blue, gave Harry Osborn 2 bad trims, devoted way too much time to Peter's dead parents, gave Rhino this tattoo, and worst of all, everything was Sony branded. Even Spider-Man. Naturally that meant the movie was plagued with horrible reviews from fans and critics alike, ranging from 4 out of 10, disappointed, truly, 3 out of 10, what is this, Twilight, 2 out of 10, a waste of good weed, and 1 out of 10, please make it stop. Due to this negative reception, Sony decided to put their spin-off movies on ice, and mercifully put an end to the Amazing Spider-Man franchise, begrudgingly giving Spider-Man back to the mouse. But what if I told you there was something much, much worse than the Amazing Spider-Man 2? Say hello to the game. TASM 2 the game was announced in April 2014 with a trailer that looks infinitely better than the real thing. I will be seeing you in court, Beanox. Now at this point the first Amazing Spider-Man game wasn't bad, but it wasn't too memorable either. Like by far the best thing about it was how the game wasn't just another movie tie-in to throw on top of the pile. It crafted its own story set after the events of the film, with Oscorp creating more cross-species which obviously escape. Oh no, how will I buy my son a giant scorpion now? With that being said, I figured Beanox would make this game in a similar format, having a story that followed on from the second film. Maybe we finally get to see that fight between Rhino and Spider-Man. Maybe we'll get a new villain we haven't seen before. Or perhaps we see Peter going on a date, then being haunted by the ghost of Gwen. So naturally Beanox decided the best way to start this game was to show Uncle Ben getting capped again. Once the game clumsily reminds you that Uncle Ben is indeed still dead, we see that Peter is again on the hunt for his uncle's killer, using a tattoo on his wrist to identify him. You quickly complete the usual Spider-Man to-do list, i.e. swinging around and causing mild concussions while doing your best to interrogate these lovely criminals. Through doing this, you find out there's an ongoing gang war in New York caused by the Russians. Anyway, no time to think about that right now because we've got to go save Stan Lee from a house fire. Probably fell asleep with the microwave on again. After you save Stan and make sure he's okay by visiting his comic shop, what the fuck am I reading right now? By some act of divine intervention, or more accurately, because the plot needed it, you suddenly find your uncle's killer.
Hey, what's that?
Stop!
He steals a car trying to get away from you, but luckily this man never passed his driving test, and next thing you know, he's crashed the car. You inspect the area, ready to finally confront the man responsible for making you cry, only to find he's been murdered by a mysterious killer, known only as CK. I wonder what that could possibly stand for. You run back home and have a little chat with Aunt May, or whoever this woman is supposed to be, until there's a breaking news report about Oscorp yet again being under attack. Please invest in better security. You swing over there, escort these lovely gentlemen from the premises, meet Jamie Foxx,
We're about to talk about going bald.
and have a quick boss fight with a shocker. D-tier, do better. This attack, unsurprisingly, makes Harry Osborn very angry, so he joins forces with Wilson Fisk, and together they bring in a new task force to patrol the city. I feel like this is also a great time to mention that the task force plays directly into the open world, where they make your life a fucking nightmare. But first, ad time. Your hairline. Is it thinning? Take that hat off, sir. Oh my god. Sir, how did this happen to you?
Please can you help me? I went to sleep with a full head of hair last night, and now it's gone missing.
Don't end up like this, man. Get Keeps. Keeps is an online subscription-based service that will keep your hair from running away. See, 2 out of 3 men will suffer from some form of hair loss by the time they're 35, but with Keeps, you don't have to worry about that.
Come on!
Keeps has got you covered with multiple different treatment plans, all approved by your local doctor, along with this award-winning thickening shampoo. All delivered to your door at a fantastic price, so you can afford this fantastic brush. Wow. But don't just take my word for it, take a look at some of these stunning before and afters. Truly inspiring. And as a man with a clapped hairline myself, I can definitely give Keeps a seal of approval. Make your hairline stronger by getting 50% off your first order by going to keeps.com/AlexWebb or using the link in the description. And together, we'll find your missing hairline. The open world itself is, weird.
How can anyone criticize Spider-Man when he risks his life
somehow looks even worse than the previous game, with the sun blinding you half the time, and feels just about as lifeless. Although it doesn't help when the game models look like this.
I'm sure you can immediately tell who this is.
However, it does score some points for the Venom musical. There is also a ton of side activities you can do here, such as again taking photos of various things like police laptops.
And you touch yourself.
You can also be up unsuspecting bad guys, become a fireman, disarm bombs, collect the finest comic books, and infiltrate Russian bases, which unlock some gorgeous new suits. Plus, when you complete some of these activities, you get a cute news report talking about how great you are. Wait. Oh no. And that's all there is to see here. Just listen to this happy customer. So one thing I might have neglected to tell you is that you kinda have to do these side activities, because if you don't, you become the most wanted man in New York. See, if you decide to ignore helping the city, probably opting to play Fortnite or something instead, this little bar will start to fill up, labeling you a menace. With the more it fills, the more likely you are to have the entire New York police force sent after you. This, as you can tell, makes getting around the open world a fucking painful experience, because if you continue to ignore people in need, the higher your menace level will grow, and the police will probably call in the fucking military to take you down. You can counteract this by doing good deeds, but much like my granddad, the police force will just forget about this 5 minutes later. Usually the best part about any open world Spider-Man game is simply being able to swing around the place, but here I can't even turn around the corner without being fucking swatted. Genuinely, who thought this was a good idea? Just give me a name, all I want to do is talk, I swear. Now obviously, you have various methods of travelling around the place, like you can take the bus, the subway, or even slingshot yourself straight into someone's living room. Admittedly, the web swinging here is a vast improvement from the previous game, making me feel nauseous, plus the camera isn't shoved up Spider-Man's ass this time. 5 stars. But the swinging now lacks any real sense of momentum and somehow feels kinda slow. Maybe taking the subway is a better option actually. To be fair though, at least Peter has this cool parkour poster. As far as the combat goes, it's basically spamming the square button until either your enemies break or your fingers do. Punch, dodge, fire sticky man fluid. The combat isn't anything we haven't seen before and feels especially repetitive here even with the multiple different upgrades. Pretty much it's just Batman in the Spider-Man mask again, just this time shit. The combat is also ridiculously easy regardless of the difficulty, because Spider-Man is a fucking black belt with these fights being on par with a Fall Guy versus Agent 47. I mean, there's only so much enjoyment I can get from continuously punching Electro in the head. Although, in all honesty, I don't quite understand how this works. The man is made of pure electricity, surely he could just escape into my Wi-Fi router. The boss fights aren't particularly great either, because they are just as mind-numbingly repetitive. However, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have fun grinding Harry's face into the side of a building. Almost every boss just follows the exact same formula as the last game, with step 1 being dodge, step 2 being punch, and step 3 being repeat until you want the sweet embrace of death. Kingpin is the perfect example of this, because all you do is make fun of his weight until he gets angry enough to run straight at you, only for you to dodge at the very last second and send him charging headfirst into a wall. Then he's primed for the taking.
Damn, girl, what you saying? What you saying, huh? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
The fight even ends awkwardly, where Fisk just falls back into his gaming chair and looks like he desperately needs his inhaler. Sure, there are some slightly better bosses sprinkled in here, but that doesn't make up for the rest of them being creatively shit. Honestly, I think the best part about these fights is the weird conversations you have with these characters afterwards.
Take my advice and go back to Russia.
There's actually a lot of these conversations throughout the game where you can sort of decide what to say to different characters, which to be fair gives some further insight into these specific characters and what's going on in their heads. But other than that, this feels like a weird taped on last minute addition that realistically doesn't add much to the game besides being able to speak to Wilson Fisk while he sounds drunk. These aren't choice based conversations we've seen in games like The Walking Dead or Mass Effect.
Wrong move.
But instead, Peter just checking off a list of questions he has for each character before the police show up. I mean, I would have loved for my dialogue choices to actually affect the game in meaningful ways, but as it stands, all you do is just spend 5 minutes staring into Harry Osborn's lifeless eyes. Speaking of which, you can probably tell there's a lot of characters features here, with the likes of Kraven the Hunter showing up to promote his new movie, Kingpin looking like a melted McFlurry, and Black Cat. Electro and Green Goblin are obviously here too, but surprisingly the main villain is actually the mysterious murderer from earlier on, dubbed the Carnage Killer.
There's gonna be carnage.
Yeah, for whatever reason, Carnage is the main villain here, as he's been the one killing other criminals from the start, probably because he watched too much Dexter. Cletus himself is pretty much your standard psychopath, like he says weird shit and has this haircut. I'd lock him up. Arguably though, the best character here is Kraven. I mean, just look at that sexy beard. At the start of the game, he sends a message to Spider-Man offering to help him take down the Carnage Killer. Through this, you visit Kraven and learn that he travelled over to New York so he could hunt the remaining cross species to decorate his flat with. He acts as a sort of mentor for Peter, helping him eventually find Cletus, but wants to try and push Spider-Man to his full potential, which basically means he wants him to kill Cletus. Peter obviously refuses, Cletus gets arrested, and Kraven leaves, only for it to be revealed later on that Kraven has been working for the Kingpin all along, and that he's been secretly hunting you.
Yes! Success! Get him! Run! Run, they're mad, I blew his balls off.
And while all that stuff is pretty good, I think Sony must have read the script, attacked the writers, and demanded the game needs more Electro and Green Goblin. See, it's fairly apparent Beanox wanted to make the story in a similar fashion to the first game, being a sort of continuation of the films, hence why Kraven, Kingpin, Black Cat and Carnage all tie into one another, with a plot that basically can be summed up as lol, Kingpin's fat and rich. Sure, it isn't exactly Oscar-winning writing, and some of it is still pretty bad.
You've seen what can happen. Why would you do that to yourself?
Boy, you are thick.
But at the very least, there's a clear reason for these characters to be here, whereas Electro just kinda shows up, and Harry's weird goblin illness is about as well explained as it is in the movies. Just get some cream for that rash, I'm sure you'll be fine. Because of this, the story as a whole feels incredibly undercooked, leaving me with questions like who is this blue man, why is Kingpin the size of a boulder, and most importantly, where is Gwen? Oh right, you think I remember that. Now, since being arrested, the government decided it would be a good idea to experiment on Cletus, putting various things inside his body. Don't worry though, I'm sure nothing will go wrong. Oh no, how could this possibly have happened? These experiments transformed Cletus into Carnage, which I'm sure was a desired result, so I'm going to call this a success. Well done, boys. This leads into the end of the game once you put Kingpin on a Weight Watchers diet and subscribe Harry a new barber. You see that the prison is in some slight trouble and swing over to check out what's going on, where you have to fight through tons of these infected prisoners. You make your way through the prison until eventually you confront Cletus and he uppercuts you into orbit. You have a talk about the meaning of life, he fully transforms into Carnage, and you beat him in another terrible boss fight. Like seriously, all you do is throw him into the fireplace and call it a day. There isn't much of a challenge here. New York is saved yet again, and the game ends with Peter crying to Stan Lee about his dead uncle, where Stan Lee proceeds to say, "Lol, get over it kids," and then the game just abruptly ends. Nice. Honestly, when it comes to The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I don't know what to say really. It's received this reputation as being the worst Spider-Man game ever made, and after playing it, I can definitely see why. The game looks atrocious, especially some of these character models.
Whoa! Who's that guy?
The web swinging isn't great despite what others would have you believe, the combat is dull as fuck, and the story is on par with the film it's based around. But by far, the worst thing about this open world game is the fact it makes doing side activities mandatory, or else the entire military will be sent after you. Since this game wasn't exactly received well, Sony decided it was time to part ways from Beanox, and the Spider-Man license was handed over to Insomniac, where they made an alright Spider-Man game, I guess. As of today, it's pretty difficult to find a copy of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, probably because Sony bought all of them in an attempt to bury this fucking disaster, but luckily I still managed to secure one, which now I'm gonna sell for a reasonable price. Oh, what's that? A potential buyer? Oh shit.